and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 535, and today's date is December 6, 2014, and the title of this episode is The Current Economic Collapse News Brief for this Saturday. Now, we all understand that Europe is completely imploding on itself. I mean, we look at the numbers, we look at the economic indicators, and we see Spain, France, Cyprus, Greece, Italy, it's spreading to Germany, going to Europe, going to UK, and we see that the central bankers are continually manipulating a lot of the numbers. They're trying to convince everything that everything is going to be fine. We're all going to see an improvement in 2015. But again, you really have to look at the situation and ask yourself, well, how is this improvement going to come when all these countries have a massive amount of debt? Unemployment is skyrocketing, youth unemployment is skyrocketing, and as they take on more debt, these countries, they have to impose austerity, and when they impose austerity, guess what? They don't have revenue coming in to pay for that debt, so it's an ongoing cycle where they have to take on more debt. Well, we see the central bankers' illusionary numbers are completely separating themselves from what's really happening, and it seems like the credit rating agencies are starting to look at this and say, okay, we can't hold off anymore, and we're going to have to start downgrading some of these countries. Right now, Standard & Poor's on Friday lowered Italy's credit rating by one notch on concerns about weak growth and increasing debt while maintaining a stable outlook. S&P dropped Italy's long and short-term sovereign credit rating to BBB A3 from BBB A2. So we can see right now it has already started. They're going to start bringing all of these countries, their credit rating down, because there's no way out of this situation at this time. And of course, the central banks are going to continually tell us that things are going to look better, things are going to improve, but as we know, they are not. Now, very interestingly, a lot of gold is being moved out of the New York Fed. Where is it going? Why is this happening? Gold dropped 42 tons for the month of October as foreign countries repatriate their gold home. This was the largest monthly drawdown in 13 years and the largest series of drawdowns since 2007. And we can see right now countries are getting nervous. They want their gold back. They see what is happening. They're on the front lines. They're in Europe. They realize that things are falling apart and they're taking precautions. Just like they're making deals with China with bilateral trade agreements bypassing the dollar, now they want their gold back. So where is all this gold going? Well, Germany is asking for their gold back. The Netherlands, the Dutch central bank, has repatriated in utmost secret about 122.5 tons of gold from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York to its vaults in Amsterdam. Belgium is asking for its gold back, and they want it. And we're going to see a lot of other countries going to say, you know what, it's time to get our gold back. And this is why we see the Fed going out, stealing the gold from Ukraine. They're in South Africa trying to get the gold from Mali and other countries, because basically they don't have enough gold to give back to all these countries. And when more and more countries ask for their gold back, this is when the problem starts to happen. Now, we understand that the governments love to pretty much control all information, the flow of information. They don't want to have a free internet. They like to censor certain things. They don't want certain things out there. And we see that internet freedom around the world has tumbled for the fourth consecutive year, with 36 out of 65 assessed countries showing negative trends as more governments resort to repressive measures that stifle online use. Of the 65 countries analyzed in the study, entitled Freedom of the Net 2014, 19 adopted new legislation that increased surveillance or restricted user anonymity. Iran took first place for its strong-handed internet interference, followed by Syria, China, Cuba, Ethiopia, Vietnam, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, and Pakistan. And we can see here in the United States, the government doesn't want certain things out there. So what do? Well, we see on YouTube, they just bring down the channel for no reason. They give no reason why it was brought down, and then a couple days later the channel is brought back up. In England, what are we seeing? Well, they're trying to block certain sites. They don't want you to see certain things, and this is why they're putting together a task force to say, oh yes, this is something the people cannot see because it has to do with terrorism and things like that, and they're blocking that. They're blocking pornography, they're blocking things, and the government is making the decision of what they block. Here in the United States, they're trying to throttle different news sites, and they're doing this on purpose because they don't want certain information out there. Now, we understand the South Stream project is dead. I mean, Russia canceled it. It looks like there was a problem with Bulgaria. There was a lot of pressure being put on Bulgaria from the United States to not do this, and it looks like Bulgaria went along with this, and they're losing a lot of money. Actually, Germany's losing a lot of money, and many other countries are losing a lot of money. But once the construction of the new pipeline is over, the transit through Bulgaria will be discontinued. The EU and the European Commission simply presented Turkey with a gas valve. Turkey might use it in its dialogue with Europe, and we've got a new strategic partner in the gas business. This is coming from the Gazprom CEO. Turkey is becoming the monopoly number 2 partner in Europe, and after Germany, which gets Russian gas via the exclusive Nord Stream gas pipeline, Turkey basically is going to control the gas to Europe, and they're the ones who are going to say, you know, you have gas, you don't have gas, let's make a deal. And it seems like Russia will be completely left out of this situation here. Now, out in Ukraine, we understand the southeastern people had an election back in November. I think it was November 2nd. Right now, Poroshenko is out there saying, listen, they didn't follow Ukrainian law, and these elections need to be canceled as soon as possible. But I don't think the southeastern people are going to listen. And this fighting is going to continue because, as we see, the U.S. House votes 98% to donate U.S. weapons to Ukraine, even though the public is out there and it's 67% saying they are against doing this. And we can see right now that this has all been prepared. Weapons have been being shipped into Ukraine covertly. Troops are being trained, and Ukraine is getting prepared and getting ready for a major offensive in the southeastern section, because we have to remember these central bankers have not gotten what they paid for. They paid for an entire country. They've only received the west portion of Ukraine. They want the southeast, and eventually they will go into Crimea. And as we know, the United States government has passed a law telling Russia to get out of Ukraine, to give back Crimea, and we can see this is the beginning of World War III. Now, we can tell that they're getting ready for some type of offensive because Ukraine President Poroshenko on Saturday greeted the military of the 92nd Brigade on the day of Ukraine's armed forces and gave to them about 100 units of heavy weaponry, including tanks and helicopters. The 92nd Brigade received bullet tanks, upgraded T-72 armored personnel carriers, self-propelled artillery, 7 helicopters, Mi-8s, and Mi-2s. So you can see the weapons are coming in, the training of the personnel is happening, the paid mercenaries are now intertwined into the armed forces, and all equipment is being moved to the area. We know Poroshenko wants the airport in Donetsk, and we can see he set up a ceasefire on December 9th, but we've seen him do this many, many times before, and all of a sudden there was no ceasefire. Now, out in Iraq, we see Canada continually bombing in Iraq, and they're saying that they're not going to bomb inside Syria. And we see a lot of countries saying that. UK, we see Australia, and many other nations saying they're not going to go into Syria. And we have to really look at the situation here. There is no reason why the United States needed to go into Syria. It is a sovereign nation. Just because a terrorist group is there, they don't have the permission of Syria to go into the country to bomb. It would be almost the same type of scenario if the Islamic State was in Texas and Mexico and Brazil or Venezuela decided to fly their jets in or use long-range missiles and fire them into Texas to try to get the Islamic State. How would the United States react to this? Well, they would say this is some type of invasion right now, even though there is a terrorist group inside the country. This is exactly what's happening in Syria. It is an invasion. Now, we understand the Islamic State is going after the air bases inside Syria, especially near Deir el-Zor, and we see the Syrian army has repelled an attack by the Islamic State, and they're holding on to the air base. And the reason why the Islamic State is moving into each of these areas, capturing oil fields, capturing refineries, it's because the they are a proxy army for the United States government, central bankers, Israel, UK, and other Arab nations, and they're destroying the infrastructure of Syria, and they're trying to capture the air bases because they're trying to pretty much have the Islamic State there so the United States can come in and bomb them and eventually destroy the air bases in this entire area so they can set up the no-fly zone. And this is why we continually hear talks about this no-fly zone, and they're preparing to set one up. Now, it looks like the U.S. military has established a new command that will oversee the operations in both Iraq and Syria. And we have to remember, the United States commandeered an air base in Iraq. They threw out all the Iraqis. They took the air base. They're setting up a division headquarters that can hold up to about 30,000 soldiers. We understand they've made an agreement with the Iraqi government where the troops will have immunity. It's the same thing that's happening in Afghanistan. Biden tried all the way up until the troops were removed from Iraq. He was trying to make the deal with Maliki, and that never went through, and this is why the troops had to be removed. Now we see the agreement is being made with the new president in Iraq, and we can see this lays the foundation for more troops inside Iraq, and we're going to see a lot more troops being moved in. And if you noticed, all the advisors that Obama was sending over there, it started out with like 275, then it was like 400, then it was 600, and then finally he's sending in about 1,500 advisors. And again, these are combat-ready Marines. So they're setting up this new command center, and why do you think they're doing this? Because they're getting ready to go full force into Iraq and Syria with troops, and this is why they're getting ready to do this. Now, the Department of Homeland Security is out there, and they are giving us another warning. They're saying Boston is one of many major cities at heightened risk of lone wolf terrorist attacks. So really, they're laying the foundation. They're telling us there are certain cities in the United States where these Islamic State terrorists are going to hit. These are going to be the physical attacks, and I do believe that this is going to be a multi-pronged type of event that's going to occur. It's going to be physical, where we might see a chemical weapon or a dirty nuke or something like that go off in one of these cities. And we have to remember back when Obama said, maybe there would be a nuke going off in New York. And we can see right now that, this could happen. There's also a Romanian hacker who said, listen, he believes that in 2015 Chicago might be nuked there. So we can see right now they're paving the way. We understand that Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, Syria, the Islamic State, they all have the ability to cyber attack. So we can see right now they're planning for something very, very large to happen. They're laying the foundation. They're continually telling us that, yes, these attacks will be coming. They will be coming to different cities from lone wolf groups, and the Islamic State doesn't even have to come into the country because they will use the web and social media to get people to do this inside the United States. And we have to understand that all this that's going to be done is going to be from the inside. It's going to be from our own government, and they're going to create a false flag event where they make it look like it's coming from other countries, because their whole goal is to get your eyes off of them, off the central bank, and move it on to another country and blame them for this economic collapse. They can start the war, and this will cover up the entire collapse of the private Western central banking system. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.